Hello everybody, welcome back to Reaper Minis TV. This will be the last episode before I head off to ReaperCon, and then you'll see what hopefully will turn out to be a bunch of videos from ReaperCon 2011. Before getting into reviews for this episode, here's a look at the ReaperCon Sophie. Sophie is kind of like Reaper's mascot, and here's the unpainted version and also the recently painted version. So if you attend ReaperCon, you'll end up being able to get one of these. They're only available at ReaperCon unless you have somebody pick it up for you or you grab it off eBay, and then you'll probably pay a lot more for it. So anyway, here's Sophie from ReaperCon 2011, and now we'll get into this episode's reviews. First up, we've got two Warlord releases to look at. The first one is a giant Slayer of Kragmar, and this is a two-piece miniature where you get the bulk of the figure as a single piece and then part of his weapon as a second piece that you'll need to glue into place. He's wearing quite a bit of plate armor and a little bit of fur here and there, and the weapon he's holding is a length of chain with two weighted spiky ends. Now, the part that's coming off of his left hand, you'll need to glue that into place, but you do have a little bit of play with the chain itself, so you can bend it into whatever direction you want that front weight to be headed towards. Now, since it is just on a bit of chain there, the joint where it goes into his hand and also at the weighted end, if you do too much bending, you're likely to compromise the joint. So just get it securely in there and leave it alone, and be careful when you're playing with it or using the model during a game. Next up is Dhalea Dourmidhaz. She is from the Darkreach faction, so she's a dark elf, and immediately I thought that she doesn't really fit in with the look of the other Darkreach elves very much. She doesn't have the tattered cloak, she doesn't have that sort of, I guess, the same sort of spindly, really thin and wiry look that a lot, and in my opinion, most of the Darkreach elves have. So she does stand out a little bit from the rest of them. I think she'll look fine as part of a Darkreach army once she's painted and integrated into a unit, but she does have a little bit of style that's different than what's prevalent in a Darkreach army. And then into the Chronoscope line. We start off with a group of Zulus. This is actually the third pack of Zulus that Reaper has released. Here's a quick reminder of Zulu Pack 1 and Zulu Pack 2. And with this new pack, these guys are all carrying big clubs, and they have the shields, the stereotypical, or I guess typical shields that you'd find with a Zulu warrior. And like the other packs, I think that these would work fine in a historical game where you need Zulu warriors, or you could mix them in with the island savages from Reaper, and that's probably where I'll use them. And here's a look at my island savages that I use in a Revan army, and you can see that the Zulus would fit in there without a problem at all. Each of the warriors had a mold line that was visible, so it's going to take you a little bit of time to clean them all up and be ready to base and prime. One thing to be careful about is on the shields. Where they are cast on the casting tab, there's a part where they connect to the casting tab and they've got that big bushy end to it. Just be careful there, because that bushy end and then the shaft that they hold on to, that part is a little bit of a weak joint. It's easily bent, and I've actually broken a couple off in the past myself, so just be careful with that part there when you're cleaning the miniatures and getting them ready to assemble. Here we have Ishio. She's an Anime Heroine, carrying a pistol in her left hand and what looks like a submachine gun in her right hand. She's got what looks like a little old-fashioned stewardess hat on and is dressed in a vest and pants. I think you could use her in a futuristic game, but probably equally at home in a modern game too. There was very minimal cleaning needed for the figure, and you can look on her pants and also on her jacket. There's lines that sort of look like creases or pleats that are already sculpted onto the miniature, so you could use those to add some definition on her clothing, but if you wanted to, you could also really go wild with the paint scheme, and you've already got the different plates or parts of her clothing marked out for you if you wanted to do something like that. And then back to Dark Heaven Legends for this episode. We start off with Thilinos Nightflame. He's a dark elf, and it sounds like a Greek-sounding name there. And sort of the opposite of the previous dark elf we looked at that I didn't think really kept the same style as the Darkreach dark elves. This guy is not a Darkreach dark elf, but he is very reminiscent of that style. He's got the tattered cloak, and he looks kind of thin and wiry, and his armor looks very similar to theirs. So I think you could drop him into a Darkreach army. He reminds me a lot of a Darkreach champion called Avrix Dearth, and you can see him here. And Avrix is a non-unique elite, so if you wanted to use Thilinos as another version or a second version of Avrix in a Darkreach army, you could definitely do that, or just use him as a Dark Elf. Here we have Ashla Felthrush, and he's a paladin, and the first thing I thought of is that he will probably end up in my Bretonnian army for Warhammer Fantasy Battle as a paladin on foot to accompany a group of men-at-arms. Got very nice detail on the shield. A good dragon has been sculpted in there, so it'll be very easy to pick out when painting. And the rest of the figure also has lots of extra details that are sculpted in, like on his tabard and on the shoulder pads and his leggings and the scabbard for his sword. There's just all sorts of extra little filigree here and there, so it might be daunting for a brand new painter, but I think it would look very good once it's done. Now, for my purposes, like I said, I'll probably drop him into a Bretonnian army, and clipping the base a little bit, he will fit on a 20 by 20 square base just fine. This is Zala Natar, and she is a huntress. It's a single-piece miniature of a female who's not wearing a whole lot of clothes, definitely has sort of a Tarzan or jungle kind of motif going on, carrying a staff in her left hand, and in her right hand she has what looks like a punch dagger that's sort of on the back of her wrist. On her left leg there's a scabbard that has a short sword or a dagger in it, and it looks like the handle of that weapon is made out of bone. Somebody's leg bone probably is sort of what it looks like. She's got various jewelry on, little bracelets and a necklace and little bits of stuff here and there. As far as clothing is concerned, there's more of her uncovered than covered, but there are no naughty bits showing or anything like that, so I think it's tabletop safe for any gaming group. She does look like she'd make a very passable barbarian or ranger or maybe even a druid, one of those kind of nature classes I think she'd do very well as. And then we'll round out this episode with a dwarf. This is Brangus Bronzebeard, and he looks like a thief to me. He's carrying a sack in his left hand, and in his right hand he's sort of thrusting out with a large dagger. He's wearing a backpack and has a bandolier of several pouches and also another couple of pouches that are on his belt, so he very much looks like an adventuring rogue or thief to me. With a first name like Brangus, I'm not surprised at all to see the little Scottish hat that he's wearing, and I think that's a nice little unique detail of the miniature. Thanks for watching this episode of Reaper Minis TV. We'll see everyone next time with footage from ReaperCon 2011.